Earlier this year, I accidentally dropped almost a 4 month's rent on buying one ticket to see the All Blacks play the Springboks in this year's Rugby World Cup, after forgetting to check the exchange rate before clicking confirm and buying a ticket. Fast forward, however, to full time on Saturday, and suddenly me and my single kidney think we've scored an absolute bargain. After 2 tests decided by just 2 points each last year, the 2 teams set up this September's rematch in Yokohama perfectly by playing out a draw in the most dramatic conditions imaginable. It was a stalemate with nothing stale or matey about it. Just the most intense, all-out test match you'll see until these 2 teams play again on September 21st. So, just how even was it, and how did either team break down their pool rivals with less than 2 months to go until they meet again? This was a game with far less space than last year's 11-try lightning strike, as both teams cancelled each other out with an intensity that, much like Jack Goodhue's hair, transcended ugliness and became, oh my god, I wish that Backstreet Doctor would remove my eyelids as well as my kidneys so I never need blink again and miss any of it level compelling. Defences were on top for the entire 80 minutes, but the 2 teams, like Jack Goodhue's hair, never knew when to stop. This meant both teams had to fight for every inch, and every time someone got through those defences, it was strategically engineered, product of a complicated breakdown, most likely like Jack Goodhue's hair. South Africa managed just 4 clean breaks in the game, 2 of them through greased-up lightning disco dancing paperclip himself, Cheslin Colby. However, whilst we all know Colby is more than capable of breaking the line along with a few opposition ankles on his own, with the defence at such intensity, both these breaks required an extra bit of help and planning. It only takes a single yard of space for Colby to create a try-scoring opportunity, and knowing they had that weapon out wide, South Africa ran 2 excellent moves to try and manipulate the All Blacks into giving him that yard. In my video on last week's game, I highlighted the play the Springboks pulled in the lead up to Lou de Jager's try, where they crashed the ball up, then switched back to where the scrum had been, whilst the forwards were still retreating, opening a huge hole for Pieter-Steph du Toit. With a scrum in a similar position, South Africa once more sent a centre up the middle, with support ensuring quick ball. And once more, du Toit lingers, waiting, looking for the exact same hole, except the All Blacks are expecting it. You can see both Fafita and Whitelock are pointing at him. They watch the highlights, they know where this is going, except they don't. Du Toit is the dummy. De Klerk fires it past him, all 3 of his mates and all 4 of his names, and into the arms of Colby. Out wide is only a retreating Joe Moody, one of the slowest players on the field, a single yard away from the very quickest. With the scrum just outside the All Blacks 22, Ioane is still deep to cover for a kick, and seeing the numbers on the blind side feels no need to shoot him and cover, the forwards have got this covered. PSDT gives the All Blacks PTSD. They were so affected by his break last week that they missed the danger man out wide. Whilst this yielded nothing but territory and a chance to smash Colby's other break was the moment that perhaps fundamentally changed the tone of this video. On the surface level, it just looks like great hands by South Africa's 2 primary playmakers, Pollard and Leroux, putting their quickest player away down the wing. However, there's a shade more to it than that. This play initially comes from a line-out in roughly the same position that Colby eventually catches the ball. But before Mbonambi throws in, Pollard does the rounds, telling everyone the plan for the play. If we look at him before most set play setups, he's only really taking time for his immediate partners, those passing to or receiving the ball from him. But here, everyone needs to know the call. Well, everyone but Pimpy, but he's a winger, so screw him. The play is simple. Over several phases, get the ball from one 50-metre line to the other, and then back again. The idea is just to spread the All Blacks defence out, to get them into what is essentially a default defensive pattern. Don't let them gang up in any one area or on either touchline. So the ball does work its way back, and the All Blacks just number up. It's simple. Surveyor marks a toy, Bridge marks Pollard, Mo'unga is out of shot, but he's watching Colby and a potential chip. This is a 3-on-3. This should be fine. They, much like me before typing yen to pounds calculator into Google, think they've got it covered. Except the toy's line forces Surveyor to plant his feet for the tackle, meaning he can't drift and cover the space. A little nudge of the shoulder from the toy makes sure of it. The ball goes back to Pollard instead, so Bridge reads it, shoots in, but Pollard pops the ball to Leroux. Mo'unga bites in to hit Leroux, but without a duplicate Bridge, they're somehow a man short, and Colby is away down the short side. He then makes the well-weighted chip that Yankees eventually regathers before the Scarlet's legend dives over for the equalizer. This all left the All Blacks asking 2 questions. 1, are we sure he didn't knock it on? And 2, where the hell did Leroux come from? This is where the wide-to-wide phase play comes in. Off the initial line-out, South Africa used both Pollard and Leroux as playmakers, the pair dropping off passes as they worked the ball out left. But on the way back right, it exclusively goes through Pollard. So just keep an eye on Leroux as the play works its way back to the initial touchline. Even as Naikani takes contact, LaRue is half a pitch away from where he eventually ends up. So when the All Blacks are lining up their defence on the short side, they need not cover this guy dawdling behind the ball totally inconspicuously on the other side of the ruck. And then, boom! There's no communication from LaRue with Pollard prior to the pass. Pollard never even looks at him, and then when the pop pass comes, he knows exactly where LaRue is going to be, because this is rehearsed. They know their roles perfectly, and LaRue's lazy line, taking his time to get back from the opposite wing, was entirely deliberate. The Springboks had worked the ball all the way out to the other touchline just in order to hide LaRue behind their entire attacking structure, so that he could come in at the last second, totally undetected, and create the extra man and give Colby that single yard he needed. The All Blacks also had a wide defence to overcome. Under Rassie Erasmus, South Africa have played an interesting twist on the usual defensive setup. Instead of having their 13 shoot in to kill a play as soon as the ball comes wide, South Africa have their winger fly in and try to stop the ball getting any wider. It's an adaptation of the same idea. It's like if this were chess, South Africa are using a bishop where most teams use a rook. They're just playing on the diagonals. In theory, this does make sense. Wingers get up quicker, they flood in from outside the attacker's eye line, catching them off guard, and crucially, it's easier for all of the defence to drift out to the wing than it is for some to drift in and some to drift out to cover the 13 channel if the tackle is missed. However, this tactic has one huge downside, because if you do manage to get outside the blitzing winger quick enough to beat the drift, you can find a lot of space out there. The majority of the All Blacks' attempts, however, required a floated pass that gave the defence time to springbok into position. The defensive setup is all risk-reward. Sometimes it will cost them metres, but when it works, they can kill attacks stone dead. However, there was one occasion on which they couldn't get the cover across, and that resulted in New Zealand's sole try, scored by the human being attached to Jack Goodhue's hair. Coming off what was essentially a turnover, the Springbok line was still set for attack, and that left them numbers short in the middle. So, Mapimpi decides to cover further infield than usual. However, instead of recognising that these are different circumstances and just floating, holding his width and drifting on to Smith and Barrett, Mapimpi does as he's drilled to do and shoots in, and in doing so sells New Zealand the space. Spua floats the ball over his head and gives Barrett all the time he needs to escape the cover and slip the ball to the mudslide on his inside. The All Blacks did eventually begin to break South Africa down more systematically as the game went on. The defence requires absolute clarity in decision making from the wingers, so all the All Blacks had to do was put enough doubt in their minds. Wales did something similar last year by overloading Diante's wing with backs, so he bites in off instinct before instantly realising it's a backs buffet and he has no idea which bite to take. But whereas that was first phase ball off a scrum 5, the All Blacks managed to do it in general play. Most teams would normally run a pod without the back options as the first thing off the ruck, but instead the All Blacks slid it right out towards the touchline. This allowed them to bamboozle the winger and find the space out wide. The All Blacks have been experimenting with shuffling their pods around the field in both games so far, but the only team to cotton on to this as a means of beating the South African defence late on in the game. And the Boks, to their credit, still scrambled to make sure no real damage was done every time. Though, with the major rematch less than 2 months away, this could be a really interesting advantage for the All Blacks, a means of undressing the opposition that they're yet to fully exploit. Or, on the other hand, it might give Erasmus time to adapt and work on a counter. Because, though that game's in the background, there's a real possibility that these two teams could meet for a third time this year. The World Cup is now wide open, everyone is beating everyone, but it may just be that these two teams who can't beat each other are the two teams who could make it all the way to the final. Because if that could live up to these last 3 test matches, there's a few more body parts I might yet be willing to flog in exchange for a ticket. Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Thank you for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you as well to everyone that supports the channel on Patreon. It makes an enormous difference and I've been continue doing this in the way I am, so thank you very much. Additionally, have any of you ever played Ultimate Frisbee? I played Ultimate Frisbee once. I was about 14 or 15. I seem to remember that I enjoyed it, that I thought it was a good time. But if any of you think, what is Ultimate Frisbee and how can I play Ultimate Frisbee right now with local people who happen to like this YouTube channel I'm watching right now as well, you've got a very niche line of thinking, but you are also very very much in luck because you can use the Find a Player app, which is floating around here. It's on Android, on iOS, and in the UK and Ireland, you can sign up, use the Squidge Rugby channel code in order to meet people from the channel and sign up through that, or just meet strangers. Just go and meet strangers, play Ultimate Frisbee with them like your mother warned you never to do. So if you head to the Find a Player app, you can find all kinds of opportunities to potentially play Ultimate Frisbee in a park near you. Additionally, I know some of you might be waiting on wanting to see a video on the Australia versus Argentina game. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do one because for these videos I tend to watch the games back 2, 3, 4 times, and I never want to watch that video again. So if any of you want to see what I have to say on that game, my analysis of it, here it is in full.
Well, that was fucking dreadful.